put camels in a very different relationship to the traditional relationship they had with the environment. In fact, the intensification of camel farming includes things like irrigated forages, diet-rich concentrates, and these all effectively increase the growth of farming inputs. To this end, I'm delighted to introduce Dr. Bernard Faye from France, who's come over here, kindly come over to talk about the effects of camel farm and dairy intensification. Dr. Faye is formerly a scientific project manager in animal production at the International Cooperation Centre for Agronomic Research and Development in France. He obtained his doctorate in veterinary medicine at Lyon in France in 1974 and completed a Master's in Science in Animal Nutrition and Endocrinology in 1980. He spent 8 years in Africa working both in development and research. He went to obtain his PhD in animal epidemiology in 1995 at Paris University, then to manage a research team in 1998. He continued in France as an epidemiologist at the National Agronomic Research Institute and was head of his laboratory for 10 years, where he studied disease risk factors in dairy farming systems. Dr. Faye's also authored 23 books and written more than 600 scientific papers. The title of Dr. Faye's talk today is Challenges for Sustainable Modern Camel Farming. Would you please help me in welcoming Dr. Bernard Faye?
Thank you very much. And first of all, I want to thank you for inviting me because I visit many camel countries, but it is my first time in Australia. And sorry for my broken English with a typical and maybe lovely French accent, but I will do my best to be understood by everybody. So, yes. So that I just want to start here with the camel world. It means all the countries in the world when you found camel, dromedary and Bactrian camel. You can see here I had myself the color for Australia because in the FAO statistic, as I told you this morning, there is no data regarding Australia. And very often the people, they ask me, but you are a French guy, how many camels you have in France? I have only maybe, I don't know, something like 200, 250 camels, including the zoo and the circus. So it means how you can be camel expert with 200 camels in your country. So just that is all the countries that I visited or when I make expertise or when I live in. I spent some years in Ethiopia, also in Nigeria, in the Middle East also. And I'm happy because this morning I had 1 point here, next countries that I visited. So it means except Kuwait, Iraq, and Libya, I think I visit all the countries where there is camel. So it means I have a wide experience of the camel farming system in the world, and I will try to share with you this experience now. So just in introduction to say that at the world level, there is really a big change in the camel production. I can see now since 40 years that I work on a camel. Of course, there is still traditional way of life for the camel farming. Still, it's very important. It is majority. But I can see the development of modern farm in many parts of the world. And the main question regarding this change, it is the sustainability of this change and what it means, the sustainability in this context. Of course, we can say there is technical innovation to explain that the modern farming system are increasing. But technical innovation is something also scientists, they say, we will make technical innovation. We will make technical innovation in milking parlor. We will make technical innovation in reproduction and so on. But the technical innovation is something easy somewhere. There is a lot of research to do with something easy. But what is the consequence of the technical innovation on the sustainability, on the environment, on the technical, economic, the health and social sustainability? And I know it's a question of the sustainable development now, and the change cannot be ignored now by the scientists. The technical innovation is good, is important, but is not sufficient for the development for the future. I know that sustainability concept is something like we say a buzzy word. In French we say, c'est un mot valise, that's your suitcase. You can put a lot of things inside. But we have to know what we want to do. Now, if we can see the traditional image of the camel in the world, I select some slides here that I took in my travels through the world, in Mongolia, in Niger, in Ethiopia, in Sudan, in Mali, in Chad. So you can see different image, traditional image. But you can have also this image for the future, for the camel farming system and the camel production. And it is also some pictures I have took it in Emirates, in Saudi Arabia. Even you can have a look here about here. Even it is. This is Lulu. Here, you can see Lulu here. You recognize, of course. Maybe somebody here which is in the room who is a beautiful pullover from camel wool. I don't know. And so different image, modern image of the camel farming. So, but to reach this image, what we have to do to have sustainable farming. What are the current driving force of the change in the camel farming in the world? I think there is 3 or 4 main driving force. The one driving force is important. It is a condition linked to the climatic change. Of course, everybody speaks about the climatic change. It's a big challenge for everybody, for the scientists. And the consequence for the camel, that we can see a territorial expansion of the camel stock in the world, especially in Africa. I live in Africa since now 40 years. When I was in Niger, and when I was young, it's me a long time ago, I never seen camel, for example, in the south of the country. Now you can see camel up to Tanzania, up to Uganda. Even the Chad camel farmers, they start from the north of Chad, and now they go to the Republic Centrafricaine. It's mean 1,000 kilometers in the south. So you have really a big expansion of the territory where the camel are living. That is one of the main consequences of the climatic change, for example. And the second driving force is the globalization of the economy. And this globalization is pushing the farmer to be more integrated into the market, regional, national, or even international market. And that is a big challenge also for the camel producers, especially for the camel milk and the camel meat producers. And the third driving force for me is a growing interest for the camel product. We speak about the milk and the meat, but also there is other products like the leather, the wool, because these products are regarded as welfare products, especially in the Western, even in the Western country, there is a big demand regarding. It's not a big demand, it is a niche demand, but it is demand regarding this camel product because the people, they consider that it is good for the health. So it's mean, what is a different element of the sustainability? The sustainability could be ecological. What means ecological? It means that we need to know if the camel contribute or not to the greenhouse gas emission. I know that in Australia there was a big discussion some years ago about the place of the camel in this aspect, because I remember a paper in the newspaper said, we have to kill the camel to save the planet. I remember the title. So it is really a big, okay, it's a question. It's a question. So, but what exactly is the contribution of the camel to that? especially in relation to the camel demography. We will see at the world level what happened. The second question, it is the water management. What is the problem linked to the water management in intensive dairy farm compared to the farm, a traditional farm in the desert? Regarding the technical sustainability, so there is one big question, in my opinion, it is the preservation of the camel biodiversity. And another question is the assessment of the metabolic change in the camel with intensive farming management. We have seen a good presentation regarding the camel disease, but I think in the future, the camel of the future maybe will have different disease pattern than the camel in the desert. And what, regarding the economic sustainability, what is the place of the camel in the world economy and the market opportunity? Regarding health, I would like to just have a short topic regarding the control of transboundary disease for a population which is still moving and crossing the borders. And don't forget the social sustainability. What is the future of the social role of the camel in a more and more urbanized world? I will try fastly to discuss all these points. Regarding the first point, the camel demography. At the world level, the report is very contrasted because you have a growth, global growth of the camel population in the world, approximately 2.2% per year since 50 years. The first statistic from FAO date from 1961. And it's true that the main population is concentrated in the Horn of Africa. If we mixed Sudan, Ethiopia, Kenya, Somalia, and also Eritrea and Djibouti, you have 60%, 60-65% of the camel population in the world. Globally, we have 29 million camel in the world, but the statistic is not include the Australian camel. Probably we are approximately 30 million camel in the world, which is very low compared to the other animals. Well, that you can see this population is increasing regularly, more or less regularly since 50 years. And another aspect which is interesting is the growth of this population according to the different countries. In fact, we have 5 types of country. We have country with a regular growth of the population. Especially it is a camel population probably in the West Africa. And some countries have a recent but very important growth. And this is especially a country from the Horn of Africa, just in that part of Africa, and also in the Middle East. And we have some countries with a stable population. Very few countries with a regular decline. It was the case of India, still now. And it was the case of China and Central Asia up to the year 2000. But since now 10, 15 years, the population is still increasing again due to the change that we speak about. And also some countries with a severe decline. Very few countries, in fact. It's mainly, for example, Turkey. The population had decreased by 90% up to now, but now it's stable. So it means there is different countries with different growth of the population. But one thing which is very interesting is that there is no relationship between the growth of the camel population and the economic development of the country. There is no total correlation. Because some people they say, yes, the camel is an animal of the past, and probably the camel population will decline with the economical development. It's not true. So that is important for the camel industry to know that the camel increasing is not linked to the development of the general economy. So just to recall that if we see the growth of the population in the world, we compare with the index 100 in 1961, you can see in red the camel population increasing. And it's interesting because it is close to buffalo And of course, that is the goat population. But it's more important than the cattle, which is yellow, and more important of the sheep or horse and even small camelid. So it means the camel population growth is still very active, and we must accompany this growth. Okay, what about the greenhouse gas emissions? One point of the sustainable, ecological sustainable. So there is recent publication who have shown that the camelid give less methane than the other ruminants. That is a quantity given by camel, 0.32 liter per kg of methane live weight per day. For cattle and sheep is 0.58 liters per kg. So it means for the same weight. So it means emission is more interesting. And just I make a rapid calculation for Australia because it was accused to contribute to the greenhouse gas. Yes, of course it contributes, but in Australia, finally, the camel methane emission is less than 2% of the total emission of the livestock in the country. And at the world level, you can see in the percentage of methane emission here in black, and in gray the percentage of population. You see the camel is here and the cattle is here. So at world level, the contribution of camelid, small and big together, it is around 1% if we compare to the 70% to the cattle. So it means I think we can support the camel production. And also there is another publication, recent publication regarding the ammoniac emission in camel barn. It is, you know, there is one camel dairy farm in Netherlands. It's the main camel farm, dairy farm in Europe. And they calculate the ammoniac emission, and they have found a similar result. The ammoniac emission in a camel farm is 1.5 to 2 kg per year, per head and per year. It means 10 to 20% of what is produced by a cow. So it's finally the camel is sustainable by itself. And what about the water and natural resource management? That is a big concern. It's a very important. Okay, I say that one tendency, it is the intensification of the camel farming. What means intensification of camel farming? It means irrigated forage. It means, of course, diet rich in concentrate, and the concentrate are produced also in some place where you use water. It means settlement, so it means concentration in one place. It means use of milking machine, and you have to clean, you have to use this equipment, and it is waste, it is water consumers. High market integration, quality management, all these aspects need more water. So the water consumption and globally the input are increasing significantly. And just here I will show you, I don't want to comment all the numbers, but all these three numbers. You know, I compare in Saudi Arabia three systems. Intensive system is mean with irrigated forage. And I include in the water per hectare what we mean virtual water. What is a virtual water? It means if you don't produce any forage, but you buy the forage in Canada, in Ukraine, or in China, or whatever, you import your forage in your country, because many places in Saudi Arabia they do like this. But you use water in the country where you make the forage, the production of the forage. So it means it's including the virtual water. And I compare with semi-intensive system. What is a semi-intensive system? It is a system that we use in my farm. We irrigated the desert. It means we don't use alfalfa, we use the plant of the desert, but irrigated desert. And the Bedouin system, it means use only the water, which is going from the sky or from God as you want. And we calculate the quantity of water that you need to produce 1 liter of milk. all include. In the intensive system, you need more than 800 liters for 1 liter of milk. For a semi-intensive system, you need almost 100 liters of water to produce 1 liter of milk. And in the Bedouin system, you need 70 liters to produce 1 liter of milk, approximately. There is a calculation which has been done in Morocco recently regarding cattle in arid lands. And you need 1,500 liters to produce 1 liter of milk. Usually the people say it's not possible. We include all the water that we need for the functioning of the system. So it means globally, even we can discuss this number, but it means between the Bedouin system here and between intensive system, the most important thing is the water consumption. So at the national level, for example, in Saudi Arabia, I estimate for the last 50 years, you know, the water consumption is grown from 180,000 to 280,000 square cubic meters for the Bedouin and semi-intensive system, while for the intensive system, at the same time, it increased from 7,000 to 860,000 cubic meters. So it's a big, big challenge for the sustainable water management, because you have a risk of water storage. And presently in Saudi Arabia, for example, it's the main problem. If they continue like this, they will have more oil than water. I think it's almost the same already, but it will continue worse. So, but there is alternative. There is alternative. Okay, we know that intensification, with especially irrigation of the feedstock for the animals, the water will increase, the water consumption will increase. But there is system for recycling this water, especially in modern farms that try to recycle this water, retreat it. And also we can use agricultural byproducts. In Saudi Arabia, I try to use some date, you know, the date, the fruit, which has not used for the consumption, and also olive cake and some different byproduct for the agricultural activity, to have a part of this byproduct used at the place of concentrate. Not completely, but partly, so to decrease the water. And also, we can, I know in Emirates, they try to start further production under irrigation by salty water with a road grass, Chloris guyana, which is supported salty water, and you know that the camel is able to drink salty water also. So we can preserve the pure water. We have to find some alternative. I don't know that is a miracle solution, but I think we can find some alternative to the development intensive farm by preserving the water, because this is a big challenge for the future. So another aspect, the preservation of the camel biodiversity. So there is a very common question, is how many liters a camel can produce, a liter of milk? Very difficult question, because it depends on the breed, it depends on the feeding, it depends on the management, it depends on a lot of things. In the literature, we can see at least two breeds, Karani in Pakistan, Majaim in Saudi Arabia, who produce, people say 15 to 20, even 25 liters per day. Myself, the maximum I have seen is 18 liters per day. It is my farm. And it was Majaim after 20 years selection in the research station. So, but the problems that the selection we have seen this morning regarding the presentation of Rafat, he said, we don't have selection on the camel. Too much. So it means we don't know exactly what is the potential of this animal. Probably it's very high, but not so high than a cow, but probably it could be very high, but there is no pressure of selection. In the camelid family, there is only selection on alpaca for the wool fiber production, but on the camel, nobody has made selection, at my knowledge, on the milk production. or maybe at the farm level in Camel issues they make some selection, but not at the national level, nowhere. And there is very few study on the characterization of the breed. We describe a lot of breed in the world, and camel world. But usually, you know, there is one name for one camel, and the name of the camel is due to the tribe was rearing this camel. It is not really a specific breed. And we can say there is different types, but it's difficult to say different breed. But we have a big chance, because there is no Camel Holstein, there is no Camel Angus. It means if we want to develop camel meat or camel milk, we are not afraid by the breed which will invade all the world. You know, in the cattle world today, everybody wants dreaming to the Holstein, even in, I don't know, in very hot country like Djibouti. I remember people import the Camel Holstein, 45 degrees Celsius under the sun, so they don't resist. But here, with camel, we are lucky. We cannot have intensive camel breed because we don't have for the moment really specific breed we can use. We have recent study on phenotypic classification, which is proposed in different countries, but still now it is classification based only on the phenotype. So, but recently, very recently, we have new data regarding the camel biodiversity based on the molecular genetic. And that we know that the origin of the camel, all the camel of the world, the origin in the peninsula, Arabian Peninsula. And in this peninsula, there were three main genotypes. That we are sure there is three main genotypes. And these three genotypes are at the origin of all the camel in the world. That's the 12 genotype which was described in Saudi Arabia. But with Emirates, Oman and Yemen, you can have approximately 15 different phenotypes. And okay, from these three phenotypes here, one phenotype has moved through Sinai 2,000 years ago and through Middle East and up to India approximately also at the same time. And a part went to Australia approximately 150 years ago, maybe almost 200 years, okay. But it's the same phenotype for the north of the peninsula. It's the same genotype. And second genotype comes from the eastern part of the peninsula in the more arid lands of the country. And this phenotype has moved to Africa, to the Horn of Africa, probably 3,000 years ago. It means before the phenotype, the genotypes that we found in the north. And this genotype occupies Somalia, Ethiopia, South Sudan. And it's interesting because in this area you can find these two genotypes mixed. So, and another aspect which is interesting, it is a Bactrian camel. Bactrian camel is originated from this part of probably Mongolia, Kazakhstan, was domesticated probably at the same time as dromedary. And it moved with the movement of the army, Genghis Khan and so on, up to Mediterranean Sea. And it is interesting because a recent archaeological research has been done in Europe. And during the Roman Empire, they used a lot of camel for packing. And this camel, now, according to the DNA extraction of some skeleton we found not only in Italy, in France, but also in Germany, in Belgium, and even up to England, the Romans, they use the hybrid. It means this animal, the hybridization has been used for a long time. Hybridization has been looked for a long time, all along the Silk Way, the Silk Way here, from the Central Asia to Europe, because animals, they have the endurance of the dromedary and the strength, no, the endurance of dromedary and the strength of the Bactrian camel. And it is for the story, it's funny, you can find remain population of this hybrid population even in Crimea. And actually in the FAO statistic, there is one country, there is 2 European countries which declare camel population. It is Ukraine. Well, it is Crimea. I don't know if Ukraine or Russia for the moment, but I don't want to discuss about this problem. But in Crimea and Spain, because also there was one moving from the coast of West Africa to the Canary Islands, who are belonging to Spain. So when you see this movement at the world level, you can see finally the biodiversity of camel is not so important because there is only one route. But since now 15 years, we make important progress on for the knowledge of the camel genetic and genomic. And just to tell you that we contribute to create the International Consortium for Genetic Improvement of Camel, ICGIC. It has been created in Almaty 2 years ago during the ISOCARD conference. And we start because we need a sample from many parts of the world. And we start analysis. And we can see now there is different population genetically. It could be the door to make improvement of the genetic of the camel. But if we look the performance of the camel, genetics is one thing, but the control of performance is another thing. The genetic progress seems very low. For example, in Saudi Arabia, the milk and the milk production has increased by 5.4% for the milk, 6.4% per year for the meat, respectively. But if we see the demographic growth is 5.2%, it means the genetic progress was very, very low, or even was nil. For example, the increase of the milk production, if we look the mean weight of the carcass since 1961, you see the progress is very low compared to the progress for dairy cattle here. That is from FAO statistics. And regarding camel milk, of course, there is an increase in the milk production, which is very important compared to the population. But at the same time, the proportion of animal putting in lactation, it means that we use for the milk production, has increased from 62 to 69%. It means the production of the milk in the camel population in the world is due to the demography and is due to the higher proportion of lactating camel, but not to the individual productivity. So the progress of genetic is very low, both for the camel milk and camel meat. So it means we have to preserve absolutely this biodiversity. That for me it's a major challenge for the scientists, especially if we want to develop genetic, improve the genetic for milk production in intensive dairy farm, and to identify which type of animals we need for intensive dairy farm. And one way is the control of performance. That it is photo I took in my farm in Saudi Arabia to show the variability of the teat shape. When you have a milking machine, you know, and you want to put a cluster in a teat like this, it's a little bit complicated. And as we discuss about mastitis, we will have a lot of problem with kind of teeth. So it means we need really to make a control of performance, and also to have animals adapted to the modernization of the farm. So without control of performance, the genetic research maybe is a low interest. Huh? We need to set up a national system for the control of performance. We are my knowledge, there is no country doing that. For example, it's possible because, for example, it's in small camelids, especially for llama alpaca, we have herd book. We have health book, and we can have a regular recording of the performance of the animal for the wool production, wool quality, and so on. Why? Because there is a pressure of the market, it's the international wool market, which is very important. When you buy the vegan wool at $2,000 for 1 kg, behind there is a pressure. Okay, so but for the milk production in camel, even for the growth of the young, we don't have any data except in specific farm, but never at national level. In research station, and we don't have standardized measure. We don't have scoring, for example, for odor morphology like we have for dairy cows. So it means it's very important for me to maintain the knowledge regarding the biodiversity and regarding the control of performance. Another aspect is the effect of the intensification. If we compare the traditional environment and intensive environment, what's the main point? Scattered resource, low nutritive value of the food, scarcity of the water, high mobility, multi-purpose use. We can use, as I show Lulu, we can use camel for many things. But in intensive environment, what happened? The feeding is very monotone. Every day you will give the same food to the animal, twice a day or 3 times a day. Here you will spend 8 hours per day or 10 hours per day to find the food. Here in your farm, he will spend 1 hour to feeding because after 30 minutes he has finished the diet and after he's waiting. So high protein diet, regular watering, sedentarity, specialization, dairy farm, feedlot, racing stable. So it's a completely different world. Okay, that's the feedlot in Saudi Arabia for before slaughtering. So it's possible to have modern farms. That is, you know, Lulu has shown some photo of the Camelicious farm, the biggest intensive farm at my knowledge probably in the world. Okay, it's possible. But what is the consequence we have to face on? On the digestive physiology, on the nitrogen recycling, intestinal transit, rumen flora. Rafat this morning, he has shown some very good information about it, but what is the impact of monotone diet on the rumen flora? Probably it will change something, and it will change the physiology of animals. What is the effect on the food-related metabolic